Hello, my name is Keshwani. That's Keshwani, Keshwani. We are here because we want to prepare for the GMAT. We have been solving GMAT math problems out of this book here, GMAT Review, the official guide, the 13th edition. If you do not own this book already, purchase one immediately. You're going to need it. The problem that we are about to solve is the one that you will find on page number 282. Page 282, and today is our lesson number 122. Let's turn to it, please. Problem number 88 is what we're going to do. The penultimate problem on the page. The penultimate problem on the page, the second to the last problem on the page. Let's see, when did we learn? Day number 11. If you're interested in expanding your vocabulary, in addition to learning some math with me, you can go to my channel and you can look for vocabulary videos, or you can simply type in vocabulary day 11 along with my name, and you will see this video where we will learn the word penultimate along with some other useful words. Penultimate is just a very fancy way of saying second to the last problem. Number 88. In number 88 we are told that a total of 100 were sold by P and S. Whatever they are selling, I don't know what they are selling. How many did P sell? That's a very simple question. We are told that P and S together sold 100 items, whatever it is that they are selling. They are selling tickets, raffle tickets. The question is how many out of those 100 tickets that were sold by P and S, how many did P sell? The first statement tells us that S sold 2/3 as many as P. Let's see if this is of any use to us. So here S sold 2/3 as many as P. So S equals 2/3 of P. But we also know that S plus P equals 100. They tell you this right here. Total is 100, which is S plus P. S plus P is 100. And S we know is this much. So obviously we have two independent equations, so we can solve for these two variables. So the first statement by itself is enough. A, D, B, C, E. And again, if you do not know still what I'm doing here, A, D, B, C, E, you need to go here and watch data sufficiency, intro. Just type in data sufficiency intro along with my name and watch that video. That will tell you what we just did here. Data sufficiency intro. So that's it. Since we have two independent equations, we can solve for the two variables. And since the first statement by itself is enough, that tells us the answer cannot be B, C, or E. Answer would have to be either A or a D. Now just for learning purposes, this is not something you will do in the real exam. Just for learning purposes, we can actually do it out and see what it works out to be, okay? So S equals this much, let's put it in here. So S equals 2/3 of P, so 2/3 of P plus P equals 100. Multiply the entire equation by 3, so we get 2P plus 3P equals 300. It looks like 5P equals 300 and P equals 60. Voila, P equals 60. Is that what they were asking for? How many did P sell? Well, there you go, P sold 60. Let's look at second statement. In the second statement they tell us, that S sold 8% of all tickets. 8% of all tickets. It's very important that we pay attention to the details, we pay attention to the wordings. It is 8% of all the tickets, not just the tickets sold by P and S. Because that wouldn't make any sense here. Why? because we just found out, even though we're not supposed to combine the information from the first and the second statement, but it does not alter the fact that we know that in the first statement we found out that P sold 60 out of 100 ticket. If P sold 60, then S must have sold 40%. It says 8% because S sold 8% because it's not 8% of the tickets that were sold by S and P, it is 8% of all tickets. 8% of all tickets. The question is, from that information, can we find out how many did P sell? How many did P sell? The question is, how many did P sell? If we know that that S sold 8% of all the tickets. Apparently they had other workers selling raffle tickets, and we don't know how many workers, and we don't know how many tickets all the other workers sold. And since we cannot figure out how many tickets the other workers sold, or we don't know how many total tickets were sold, we don't know how many were total tickets sold. Total tickets sold by all workers. How much is that? And since we don't know that, there is no information about it, the second statement by itself is useless. And therefore, the answer is A. Only the first statement by itself is going to work. The answer is A. Let's do one more, shall we? You want to do one more? Let's do number 89. In number 89, they tell us that some people wrote down one of the first 30 positive integers. So they wrote down one of the first 30 positive integers, 1 through 30. Some people, we don't know how many people. It could be 5 people, it could be 5 million people. We have no idea. The question simply is, was there any repetition? Well, that's interesting. Was there any repetition? In other words, was an integer written by more than one person? Was a given integer written by more than one person? Was any integer repeated? Let's see what they tell us. In the first statement they tell us that more than 40 people wrote down an integer. Well, let's think logically. If there are more than 40 people and only 30 integers, of course it's logical to conclude that if there are only 30 integers and 40 people writing each individual 40 people writing an integer from 1 to 30, this implies that some integers must have been repeated. Some integers must have been repeated, obviously, because there are 40 people writing an integer 1 through 30 and there are only 30 integers. This is too silly. The first statement by itself does the job. Therefore, A, D, B, C, E. Since the first statement by itself does the job, answer cannot be B, C, or E. It will have to be either A or D. Let's look at second statement. In the second statement, they tell us fewer than fewer than 70 wrote down an integer. Fewer than 70 wrote down an integer. This does not tell us, this does not tell us if the number of people was greater than 30. And here is the number of people. It does not tell us if n is greater than 30. And we need to know that. Why do we need to know that? Because if n was less than or equal to 30, if there were fewer than 30 people or equal to 30 people, then some digits, some integers may or may not have been repeated. If there are fewer than 30 people, let's say there are 27 people writing each individual integers from 1 through 30, then it is quite possible that all of those people wrote a distinct integer, a unique integer. If we had exactly 30 people, and they are all writing one integer 1 through 30 of their own volition, oh, there you go. We'll learn this word in a second, okay? I'm not sure it's spelled correctly. We'll look it up in a second. If there are 30 people writing one integer, you told them to write one integers from 1 through 30, and they're writing it of their own volition, of their own free will, they're not told what to write, it is quite possible in theory, even though highly unlikely, but it is quite possible in theory that all of those 30 people wrote a distinct, unique individual integers from 1 through 30. On the other hand, it is also quite possible that there are 30 people in the room, and you told them to write one unique integer, and they wrote one unique integer of their own volition, and they all 30 of them ended up writing the same integer. Highly unlikely again, but still not impossible. So we do not know. They may have repeated some integers, or they may not have repeated the integer. On the other hand, if we are told that n is greater than 30, if n is greater than 30, and since we only have 30 integers, this would imply that some integers were repeated. There would be no doubt about it. Some integers would have to be repeated if there are more than 30 people. They do not tell us. All they tell us is that there are fewer than 70. Well, fewer than 70, is fewer than 70, is that less than 30 or is it more than 30? Since it does not clarify, it just says fewer than 30, therefore second statement is of no use. Because here, there will be in this scenario, there will be some repetition, and in this scenario, there may or may not be any repetition. This is inconclusive. Second statement by itself is of no good. Therefore, the answer is A. The answer is A. Listen, before I close the video, before I completely forget it, let's see which day we learned this word volition. Let's find out how to spell it, and let's learn it together, shall we? To do something of your own volition is to do of your own free will. I told you it's not spelled correctly. There is no I in there. Volition, V-O-L-I-T-I-O-N, and we learned it on day number 37. Again, just type in vocabulary, day 37, along with my name, and it will pop right up. And like I said, you will learn that word along with some other useful word to help you expand your vocabulary. Alright? I'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.